I think I'm in the mood to make some boxes again. I was looking through my library and came across this one, box making projects for the scroll saw. Fox Chapel Publishing. I will give you a link in the description, but all you have to do is go to Fox Chapel Publishing, you can find it. I was looking through the different boxes, and the one that caught my eye that I'm going to make this time will be this heart-shaped box. It's shaped like a heart. There's 3 compartments inside. You'll need 1.5 inches, more or less, material for the backs, then some 1/2 inch for the lid, and some 1/4 inch for the bottom, and the and a liner, which is done in a contrasting wood, if you'll notice. I'm going to make the box itself in maple. I had some 8/4 maple left, so it's let's see, what is it? It's 1 5/8 inches, so it's a little thicker than 1.5 inches, and that'll work. I already used the shelf paper to put the shelf lining paper to put the to put it on the wood. I've sprayed the back of the patterns with adhesive, and the next step will be to go to the drill press to drill pilot holes, 3 pilot holes in each for the starting point for the inside cuts. If you've been watching my videos for any length of time, you may notice that my shop setup looks different here. That's because the video was recorded in 2023, but it was a good project, and I've learned so much more about editing since then that I wanted to update it. In case you're curious and want to take a peek at the original video, it's still available. I'll leave a link in the description. In the background, you'll see the white frame of my jet scroll saw. That was my main scroll saw at the time before I purchased my Pegasus scroll saw. To cut the 8/4 maple for the boxes, I'm using a PS wood scroll saw. This saw is several years old and has proven a reliable workhorse. The main limiting factor of the jet scroll saw is that it doesn't have enough clearance between the saw's arm and the table to cut any material thicker than 1 inch. I purchased the PS wood saw at a woodworking show in Chicago. I don't even remember what year it was anymore. This saw can cut up to 8/4 oak or even maple. The negatives are that it requires an Allen wrench to lock the blade into the lower blade holder, and it's belt driven. There are pulleys so you can change speeds, which is somewhat inconvenient. This saw's strength is cutting thick wood, so I leave it set up with a number 12 blade. In addition to cutting thick wood, I often use it to separate long boards into workable sizes. Because it's belt-driven, the saw is a bit on the noisy side, and it also produces much more vibration than the jet or Pegasus saws. While I'm on the subject of the saw, I should mention that the PS Wood bandsaw blades are excellent. I'll leave a link to the company's website in the description. I found 2 significant ways my videos have improved since recording this one. The first is that the camera angle I used was a poor choice because my hand was in the way most of the time and you couldn't see what I was cutting. The second is that I was talking while cutting, and the saw was noisy enough that it was very difficult to understand what I was saying. I've since learned how to mute the original soundtrack and do a voiceover, as I'm doing here. You'll need some patience to complete this part of the project because the maple is hard and the cutting progress is slow. The main thing to remember is to go slowly. Don't try to put extra pressure on the blade to speed things up. All it does is cause the blade to flex, leaving you with an uneven cut. Or, even worse, the blade can overheat and burn the wood. The blade can even break. I've got the inside cuts all made, and I split the boxes apart. You'll see why I did that in a minute. Sometimes you get these little fuzzies along the bottom of a cut, so I'll take a sheet of 120 grit sandpaper and clean them up. This has to be done before the bottom is glued on. There's a little bit of a rough spot where I started the cut and later finished it as I came back around with the blade. This spot also needs to be cleaned up before adding the bottom because it will be almost impossible to get to then. I took a small file to smooth that. Now you'll see why I cut the boxes apart. I needed 1/4 inch maple for the bottoms, and I resawed that from a piece of 4/4 maple. I'll glue one of those squares to the bottom of each box, and then I'll cut the heart to shape. By doing it this way, I ensure the bottom is a perfect match to the box's heart shape. It might be a little off if I cut them separately and then glued them. The plans call for a 1/4 inch bottom, but these only measured 3/16 because you lose some thickness to the width of the saw blade when you resaw to create thinner stock. That larger piece is 7/16 and it will be used to make the top. I squeezed a bead of glue onto the bottom of each box and spread it out with my fingertip. I set that piece against one of the bottoms and placed it in the vise on the end of my workbench for clamping pressure. The vise will hold the bottom, and I added 2 F-clamps to hold the rest of the heart in place. All right, that is the heart-shaped box with the maple middle and bottom and the contrasting top there, middle layer there in purple heart, and then the top that goes on it is in maple with purple heart in the inner. Relatively easy project. I like making things like this. They're fun, and if you're new to scroll sawing, these are the kind of things that would be great to start with, because you learn a number of different techniques. You learn how to make inside cuts as well as outside, some straight cuts, some curves, but not really complicated. And it's a good project for a beginning scroll saw. A beginner on a scroll saw. It's also a good project for someone like me that's been doing this for a long time, but just plain likes having fun on the scroll saw. All right. I found a piece of 4/4 walnut, just a tad over 6 inches wide and 18 inches long, which will be perfect for the 3 center sections of the box. I checked the thickness, and it was 15/16. My hardwood dealer at the time supplied boards anywhere from 13/16 to a full inch thick. He has since retired, and my current distributor stock is usually 13/16. This board had rough edges, and the top and bottom were a little rough as well. So before I do anything else, I'll need to run this through the thickness planer. There's several different ways of applying patterns to wood. One of the most common is to use painter's tape, put that on the wood, and then use adhesive to attach the pattern to the painter's tape. I sometimes do that. People also use packing tape, the clear packing tape, to do the same thing. Another method would be to buy this clear shelf lining paper and attach that. It's sticky on one side. You would put it on your wood, and then you would attach the pattern to the other side like you would with packing tape or painter's tape. This is my favorite. It's maybe a little bit more expensive. I don't know. By the time you put the cost of the painter's tape and the spray adhesive and all that together, this is called scroll saw tape. I get it online from a company called Scroller Online. They're out of Michigan somewhere, and it's not cheap. It's $20-something a roll, I believe, but it's a two-sided tape. Now, what I like about it is because it's two-sided, watch how fast it goes on. It's a brand new roll, so I gotta find the edge. All right. Put it on. Trim it with a knife, and there we go. Now all you do is peel up the end. I don't have fingernails, so I just use the knife to find the end. Pull up the backing. Pull up the backing. Now my 3 patterns. They're square. There's 1. There's 2. And there's 3. And I'm going to have a little bit of walnut left over to make a lot of animals for Noah's Ark, so that'll probably still even be usable. So now we've got the 3 patterns for the middle pieces of the basket all set. I'm going to drill a pilot hole in this in the corner of each of these, and that'll get them ready for the inside cuts. Alright, got a pilot hole in the corner of each of those. Now, it's, for me at least, it's awkward to work with anything this long on the scroll saw, so I'm going to just cut these 3 apart so that I'm working only with one at a time. This is an older video that I decided to edit a little more before including in this multi-project collection. This was recorded before I purchased my Pegasus scroll saw. This is a jet scroll saw, but I replaced the upper and lower blade holders with Pegasus mounting hardware. No tools are required. You just have a thumb screw to hold the blades in place. I've learned more about recording and editing video over time. I always use a light and magnifier when I cut, since my eyesight's not as sharp as it used to be. Although the LED light helps me to see better, it's somewhat overpowering to the video camera. The white paper of the pattern reflects too much light, and it isn't easy to see the pattern lines at times in the video. Now I use the magnifier without the light when I'm recording. I tried to improve the picture by re-editing, is that even a word? But I could not achieve what I wanted to do. Toning down the white highlights was not enough. It made the surrounding area too dark. Now I'll demonstrate how to perform a cutting operation you'll do over and over again as you make scroll saw projects, and that's how to make sharp 90-degree corners on an inside cut. I started by threading the blade through the pilot hole, and then I cut to the point in the corner where 2 lines intersect. When I reach the point, I back up the blade very slightly, just enough so it isn't cutting. I pivot the workpiece 90 degrees so it's facing in the next direction I want to cut, and then I start cutting again. It takes a little practice, but it's a skill you must learn and perfect if you want to produce quality scroll saw projects. You'll have an opportunity to practice that maneuver in this project, since there are 4 90-degree corners to each of the 3 layers. The corners are connected by straight lines, and overall, cutting the square out of the middle of each of these 3 pieces is easy. The outside cut on 3 layers are the most difficult part of the project. They may be a bit of a challenge for a newbie on the scroll saw, but I'll give you some tips that should help you through the process. There's actually some similarity to the corner cutting process because you're making an extreme change in cutting direction. I cut along the line until I reached the point where the direction change came. I stopped cutting, backed the blade up just enough so that it was no longer cutting, and then pivoted the workpiece. I use a combination of the saw blade curve just created plus the waist area to make the turn. It takes a steady hand to guide the blade around that little circular spot, and this is a place where the magnifier comes in handy. Making this pattern is a matter of repeating the same movements around the square's 4 sides, so you should have become adept after cutting 12 sides. 2 of the layers are identical, and the 3rd layer has a similar pattern. However, there's only 1 bump out in the middle of the side, as opposed to 2 equally spaced on the other 2 sections. The difference in the pattern produces the illusion of a woven basket once the layers are placed on top of each other. One of the reasons I like the scroll saw tape is that when I'm done cutting, I only have to poke a fingernail under the corner and the tape and pattern come off, usually in one piece. There's no sticky residue left behind either. With all 3 sections cut, you can see the illusion that the sides were woven when I stacked them together. There was a tiny bit of tear out on the bottoms, and some hand sanding with 120 grit sandpaper will take care of that. The last 2 components are the top and bottom. I'll make them from maple for a nice contrast to the dark walnut. The bottom is simply a 5x5 square, 1/4 inch thick. The top is the same size, but with a square cut out of the center to allow access to the box. I don't need a pattern for that. I'll draw the lines directly on the maple with a pencil. The glue up is straightforward. I buy glue in gallon bottles and refill medium and small size bottles like this one. I squeezed a bead of glue onto the edge of the first layer and spread it around using my finger. As I mentioned earlier, this is an old video I'm using for this multi-project video. I cropped the original too tightly and part of the picture was cut off, but I wanted to comment on the glue-up process. The first insight is that the insides of the layers have straight sides, so you should use them to align the layers. The second is to make sure you glue the layers in the correct sequence, or the whole optical illusion will be lost. The box is now assembled, and I'll let it stand for a few minutes before I apply the clamps. When first applied, the glue is slippery, and when you add F-clamps, parts can slide out of alignment. I've found that if I wait a few minutes, the glue starts to set up, and I can apply clamps without the parts moving, so that's what I'm going to do. The glue is dry, and I remove the clamps so you can see the box's top, bottom, and sides. The optical illusion that the sides were woven is evident when you look at the side view. All that's left is to add a finish. This was my darkroom back in the days of film photography, and I converted it into a finishing room after building a wood shop at the other end of the basement. I wear a mask when using spray paint or finish, and there's also an overhead fan to remove fumes. The surface of this box would have been difficult to finish with a brush, so I opted for a semi-gloss spray polyurethane. So there you have a couple of past projects with some new editing to bring them closer to my current style. As usual, I have several projects underway, but nothing is entirely done yet, so I decided to do this rather than skip posting anything this week. As long as I can log in enough shop time this weekend, I should be able to finish a couple of projects and upload a new video next time.